Ladies, gentlemen, and friends beyond the binary, welcome to the Thursday Discourse for today, September 2nd, 2021. I'm your host, Tristan. Let's just do a quick run through my streaming schedule. I stream typically on Mondays and Tuesdays. This is a bit of an exception. Mia was very busy on Mondays. We decided to reschedule for today. And I normally stream on Mondays and Tuesdays. Mondays from 12 till 2, I do my weekly stream with Mia Mulder called the Monday Discourse, which this show typically is at, where Mia comes on, we do a Q&A, we talk about a handful of things that we typically get into. And then, that's that show. All this is going to be Eastern time, by the way, so noon until 2 Eastern. And then on Tuesday nights, I do Step Back Tonight, which is a show with just me, where we go over the news, we look at some stuff. It's a good chill evening on Tuesday nights from 7 to 9. And I go by he, him pronouns. You can find my work at patreon.com/stepbackhistory, or you could give a free Amazon Prime subscription that comes with your, your Twitch Prime subscription that comes with your Amazon Prime subscription. Or if you're feeling a little bit spicy, Super Chats, Bits, and Twitch subscriptions are all welcome and loved. If you haven't been checking out my content, my latest video is called The End of the 9/11 Era. It's doing pretty well. People seem to like it. So it's a video about the future of the American Empire. And my next video, which is going to be coming out on September 17th, the 6th birthday of Step Back, is about, I've had some trouble trying to get to the end of the answers, but basically it is a video response to my first video. So that should be fun. And if you want to submit questions for future streams, I hang on to them for a month. So if you are a regular and want to hang around, you can go to that link that I just put in the chat, or you can go to you can go to stepbackhistory.com/stream question and submit questions. Lastly, since this is on a not so normal day, I imagine that there are some new folks who've never seen a Step Back stream before. So please, if this is your first time here, say hello in the chat. We've got a very active community full of some great people. And who knows? Yeah. All right, everybody. We all know who the real celebrity is here, so let's get me on the horn so that we can talk about shit.
Stop doing self-deprecating jokes, Tristan.
I'm sorry, I come from a British colony. It's in our DNA.
I can tell, yeah. Hi, my name is Mia Mulder. And I'm relatively fresh out of the shower, so my hair is a mess. Hi.
Hello. Who are you and what do you do on the internet?
I am Mia Mulder, and I make videos on youtube.org.net.gov. They're moderately fun.
They're pretty
fun.
And I'm
also bad at technology.
Yeah.
I just released a video on beauty and the modeling industry.
Fun.
It's fun. It's doing great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It is on my watch later list. I will be watching it soonish.
That's all I can ask for.
Yeah.
It's 50 minutes long. Like that's whenever someone makes like a video that's 50 minutes long, I have to take a while.
Yeah, you have to set it up. You have to get ready. Other than that, everything going well?
I'm like in the middle of moving apartments, so everything is stressful for that reason. Because nothing is ever easy when you're moving apartments.
This is true.
It's just awful. It's just stressful. I keep double booking times for like important events.
Nice.
Cleaning apartment, picking up moving boxes, going to the other apartment, picking up keys, all of those shit. I keep booking them all like this at the same time, And at the same time, I'm expected to work on YouTube videos. Fucked up.
I've heard about working. Instead, I became a YouTuber, so I both work more and less than the average person with just a regular job.
Yeah. I love to set my own hours, which means no free time.
Yeah, I love that I have spent 2 days doing what looks like literally nothing because I've just been writing down ideas on index cards and putting them in different orders and just like banging tables and getting frustrated.
Yeah. Yesterday I spent most of the day just on the website Epidemic Sound. And if you don't know, dear listener, like what Epidemic Sound is, it's one of those pages where you pay a monthly subscription and they have like a bit audio archive. Uh, if you don't want to use like Kevin MacLeod's music, because he makes it for free. Um, you're just sitting there listening to music to find like music for upcoming videos and shit. Uh, Never ends.
Yeah, I am at war with my latest script, so we're not talking right now. It has to be done today. Well, it doesn't. It has to be done by like a week from now. But
Mm.
I have determined that besides this stream, I don't have any other work to do today. So I'm going to fight this until it is defeated.
That sounds like a good idea. I should be working on my script today, but I am not.
You'll see it. It'll come out. It comes out on the 17th. It'll be fun.
Oh shit, that's soon.
Yeah, that's why I got to get it done. Um,
Mm.
Other than that, has there been good discourse lately? Like I think we're post what's it called? We're post Housegate. We're past
Post Housegate.
we're post socialism is when no house.
Uh-huh. I did hear that Bernie Sanders is the head of the Supreme Court and has personally decided to ban abortion in Texas.
Oh yeah,
So
that's fun.
that's kind of fucked up from him to do, honestly, for Bernie Sanders to do this. Uh, Baron Bernard Sanders is personally responsible for every single thing that happens uh, that is bad.
Because if it wasn't for the Bernie Sanders voters who overwhelmingly voted for Hillary Clinton, then
Who also won the majority vote.
and whom a lot of like volunteers went out, like a lot of Bernie Sanders volunteers went out and volunteered during the 2016 election, especially in states where the Hillary Clinton campaign just decided to not do anything. Like I remember hearing like 2 weeks before the election, there was this whole issue where like the former Bernie Sanders team in Michigan was knocking on doors and
Yeah.
like they were saying to the Hillary Clinton headquarters, like, yo, you better send some people down here. Everybody here is saying they're voting for Trump. And like, you don't even have a campaign office in Michigan and it's 2 weeks before the election.
Yeah.
But they're like, no, we
We're
have
taking it for
wonks.
granted.
Yeah, what's it called? Nate Silver. No, what's it called? It's Bobby Mook or something. Like, there's like an actual guy whose like name is like I think his last name is Mook. Had like some numbers data thing that was like, no, well, like if we just focus on these few states, we'll win because everybody who voted for Trump or everyone who voted for Obama will vote for Clinton. That is granted.
That's just the law, really.
Yeah,
My God, like imagine. I remember a simpler time when we would make jokes. Well, I guess that was before we knew each other, actually. Like a lot of content creators would make jokes about how, like, if Hillary if Hillary doesn't win against Donald Trump, like it's just gonna lead to the end of the world, and it almost did. Although not for the reasons we thought.
yeah. What other? Oh, there's some fun stuff. So I don't know if you know, but Canada is having an election.
Oh, how's that going?
It's going very fun. Justin Trudeau is pulling a wonderful little move that you might remember Theresa May trying to pull, where she was trying to solidify a mandate by calling a snap election. The problem is that so the Prime Minister Justin T called
Jimmy
it.
T.
Yeah, called an election during the fourth wave of the pandemic, saying that called a snap election, so not even an election that had to happen, just an election, just called it out of nowhere, and is the governing party, like no vote of non-confidence or anything like that, because and whenever anybody asks him why, he doesn't answer very well, but it was because they were just ahead in the polls, and he wanted a majority government.
They just want more power.
Yeah. So that election was called a few weeks ago, and now the Liberal Party, our like center right party, is just crumbling apart to the more right wing party, the Conservatives, who are basically eclipsing. Although I would say they're both center right parties, they are virtually identical political parties, so that's fun.
That's fun.
But the New Democrats, our Social Democratic Party, is also having a pretty big boost right now.
Oh.
Like a really big boost. Like they were at, I think they had like 18% of the seats at the last election, and now they're up to like 20, 21.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. It's going well. So that is very fun. There's been some interesting stuff that came out, which I think you'll find interesting, which is that the Liberals are trying to astroturf this idea that there's like right wing, like for our Conservative Party is almost virtually identical to the Liberal Party. They have not taken any stances on any social issues. Like they don't talk about, like in Canadian politics, you don't really talk about things like the gays or the abortions or all those things. Like that's just not a thing that we talk about. Which is, a little wholesome.
Yeah.
It's not like we don't talk about the gays because we don't like them. We don't talk about the gays because like we got gay marriage in 2005 and we don't worry about it that much.
Yeah. It's a similar thing in Sweden. Like I feel like only really Americans do that shit anymore.
Yeah. So the two things that are weird is that there is a fascist guy named Maxime Bernier who's running, and he's got 5% of the popular vote. That's fun. Probably won't even get one seat, but it's fun.
That's horrifying.
Yeah, but the thing that they're astroturfing is that they're pretending that they're trying to create a narrative that the Conservatives are way more right-wing than they actually are. So, like, Chrystia Freeland, our, like, deputy prime minister, posted a video that was intentionally deceptively edited to make it sound like the leader of the Conservatives was going to privatize healthcare.
Oh, my God.
And it was so bad that Twitter did that thing that they do when they don't want to make a scene, but they have to actively counter disinformation. So the deputy prime minister got one of those like, this appears to be a deceptively edited tweet.
Yeah.
You should probably look into it. Like basically like every other Trump tweet, if you remember.
Oh yeah, I remember that. It was good times.
Yeah. And then we're getting stuff like now everywhere he goes, he's being protested by this group of people who are apparently anti-vaccine, anti-mask people. But some people are noticing that it's the same people no matter where he is in like various parts of the country. And then there was this...
That's actually fucking hilarious. Yeah. That he's got like anti-groupies.
Yeah. Then the next fun thing is that there was this one MP candidate a liberal MP candidate who took a picture that was like, look, it looks like somebody went around our riding and tore up all of our lawn signs and threw them in the woods. And we found them here. And like all of the signs are like neatly stacked, and all of the metal like stands are completely straight and not dirty at all, and everything's completely clean. And it's just like, oh man, this
keeps happening too. I like more and more, and I'm wondering like how bad are these people that like just false flag attacks? Because it's not that it can't be that hard to do a convincingly fake story like that, right? You just have to do the thing that you're saying someone else did. It's I love that. I love the neatly stacked.
Yeah.
That I'm reminded by the classic of the old man standing on the driveway with a very neatly cleaned out on an easily washable pavement, just like Black's rule, and that's somehow intimidating and also definitely not something that he just wrote
Yeah.
in very like neat handwriting spray paint.
Yeah. So we're in this situation where the liberals are trying to craft a narrative that, like, because Canadians are not very politically engaged, and this election is going to have very low turnout because it showed up out of nowhere and has absolutely no purpose whatsoever. So they're trying to create a narrative that because Canadians follow American politics as much, if not more, than Canadian politics, that they're trying to
Hmm.
say that the conservatives are basically Republicans to try and scare people into voting for the liberals
Mm.
by saying, yeah, like they're anti-maskers and they're anti-vaccine and they want to put it, they want to put a, they want to do,
You want to put a wall?
yeah, they want to put up a wall with, I guess the only
The
land
Arc.
border we have is the United States.
I was about to say, like the Arctic border.
Yep. Man, that would be tough. That's another fun. That's another fun. You know how like we like people in capitalist countries would be like, China is so like power hungry and conceited. Look at their map. Like they have this claim to all this territory that's not theirs. And then if you look at like a map of Canada made by the Canadian government, we do the exact same thing with the Arctic.
Yeah,
So that
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 doesn't count. Those are natural resources close to us. That doesn't count.
yeah. It's like we everything that we give shit to China for is almost all stuff that every other country does too.
Like honestly though, I I don't like China. I don't know if this is like a huge take, first of all, but I do feel like they need to preface it. I don't like China. I don't like North Korea. I think they're awful. But I don't think they're comparable. But
The
like I'm just
dam
saying,
break.
like that type of thing. Like I'm not a huge fan of that type of politics. Um, but goddamn, I don't want to say like Western discourse or Western media because that's a bit over generic. But like if I say it like that, like they have no idea how to talk about them like at all,
Yeah.
right?
I just like also like the talking about them as like a looming threat, as if like the reason that this isn't happening is because all the Western countries decide to blow trillions of dollars occupying Afghanistan while they were busy building an energy infrastructure and growing a middle class.
Yeah. And
It's like,
it's just really interesting too how people because I remember this like a few years ago like mocking China for building like huge cities that were empty and building subway station out of nowhere. And now like 8 years later we realize oh actually they're planning more than just like 3 years at a time.
yeah, they plan more than a
They're,
quarter ahead. If I remember correctly, like China's got its 5 year plans, but they also they have century projects and stuff like that.
yeah.
It's
Which
wild.
yeah. It sucks. It sucks that the global options right now that the sort of like uh the international culture battle is between like China, which are bad, and sort of like Western capitalist neoliberal ideals, which are also bad.
Yeah, they're just different flavors of bad. Someone just said new Cold War between Canada and Norway, and it's about the Arctic. You're close. It's Canada and Denmark, and we have had several diplomatic incidents over like unoccupied like islands and stuff like that, where we have fought for like territorial water rights. It has been super stupid, and all of the so this is so quintessentially Canadian stuff. So we fight over uninhabited islands where like Canada and Denmark have had standoffs over these because of fish and territory. I don't know, territory stuff,
Yeah.
to the point where the European Union had to get involved to stop us from apparently shooting each other at one point. But then when you like look at the actual situation and you look at like what these actual border conflicts are like, is that one of these disputed islands, the Canadian and Danish navies, every time they go there like once every few months, take down the other country's flag, put their country's flag up, and leave a bottle of liquor. Like they leave a bottle. The Canadians leave a bottle of whiskey, and I think the Danish leave a bottle of vodka.
Yeah, something like that.
And they just do this to these islands constantly. And it's like that is the only that is you guys don't understand the cultures here. That is World War III through Canadian and Danish culture.
Yes.
That is what a war between Canada and Denmark is like.
And it's all about like cod fishing rights or whatever.
Yeah. And also, as the Arctic starts to thaw, it's going to be also for like shipping lane rights and stuff like that too. God, I saw this.
We're actually going to have the Northwest Passage. It's actually going to become a thing.
Yeah, there's a fucking cursed as shit. I think it was like a podcast or something done by the Canadian, like the CBC, that was like talking about how climate change might actually be good because as the Northwest Passage opens up, they're going to turn a lot of the like towns in the Arctic are going to become like big port towns. And so all of a sudden there's going to be lots of business for indigenous people who live in the Arctic as like giant shipping freighters stop by and as cruise ships go through.
I do like the optimism of like I like the optimism of never having studied history at all because the take of a lot of capital will be flowing through this region. This will be really good for the indigenous population.
Yeah.
Like that is an incredible knowledge of history.
And it's almost as if like we're not going to end up like someday trying to call a Iqaluit and be like, "Hey, what's going up with the Inuit Council up there?" and just being like, "Oh yes, welcome to New Siberia. This is ours now. Bye." Like there's so much of the Arctic in Canada that's just like the only reason that we have claims over it is because just nobody wanted it, and now Russia's just going to come in and be like, "All right, it's ours.
It's ours now.
Take it up with Putin."
It's Russia. It's Russia and like it's Russia versus Canada and like Norway and Denmark.
I don't like our odds that one.
Yeah, it doesn't sound great. God, we're never gonna be climate change, right? Because like we're just gonna get oil in the north now, so peak oil just keeps moving forward forever, and we're never gonna have too expensive oil for natural.
Well, there's some optimism on that front because peak oil. A lot of the oil speculators are suspecting that peak oil was actually in 2019, but because it's not peak oil production, it's peak oil demand.
Yeah,
and because apparently the EU passed a law in 2019 or 2020 that basically banned new cars that are not hybrids at least.
Mm-hmm.
And like that means that all of the like Jufen Offenwagen cars, all of the German cars are going to have to be hybrids. And that like the Italian cars are going to have to be hybrids. And so it'll change things pretty fast.
That will change. That's actually true.
So
I'm trying to find like a good daily crude oil demand. I'm trying to find if there's a good source for that.
Yeah, if I recall, one of the first Monday discourses was us talking about the time when oil went into negative price.
Yes. Oh, that was a good time.
It was one
Want
of
that to happen again.
That was one of the last discourses we had before the pandemic, basically.
Everything's got a sec. Speaking of the pandemic, did you hear Joe Rogan got sick?
Yeah,
And is taking like the most cursed cocktail in human history.
Yeah, he just like what treatments are you taking for the vaccine? Or what treatments are you taking for COVID? Yes.
Yes.
The only one he's not taking is the vaccine. He's taking literally every other treatment.
Oh, why? Like, I know that he's a dumbass, right? Like, Joe Rogan is a dumbass. I'm very happy calling that out. But I didn't think it was this much of a dumbass.
Oh,
yeah. Is he really this much of a dumbass that in, like, fucking September, or I guess August of 2021, the vaccine has been out for almost a year, and he still hasn't taken it? Because I always thought that he was just like a little bit like, yeah, whatever. Like he'll take it eventually, but it's not a huge. Like he didn't just think about it, but he seems to be like just an anti-vaxxer basically.
The ratio of dumb to size of platform for Joe Rogan is absolutely off the chart. Like I've never seen somebody.
Yeah.
I have never seen somebody who is so dumb, but is taken so seriously by so many people.
It's like it's as if Alex Jones calmed down a little bit, and that's it. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Like I remember seeing something about like Joe Rogan, like talking about like trans issues like 4 years ago or something like that, and like just being a complete idiot at that stage as well, right?
Well, yeah, a lot of his
Um,
bad takes are just the fact that he's just an idiot. He doesn't know anything about anything,
I know.
and he's like a lot of like white guys on the internet, which is that they do zero research but assume they're an expert.
Yeah, basically.
I do like there was there's somebody who explained it that I thought was very funny, which was that Joe Rogan is sort of like a Mongol like warlord who is illiterate and uneducated but wants to become an intellectual, so he just grabs like raids places for the smartest people and brings them from his court like explain why sky blue. Like, but the thing is he's an idiot, so he just accepts anything anyone says.
Yeah. The person explains and he's just like, no, wise man from other village tells me that sky is blue because of pheromones in the sky.
Yeah.
What a clown. Just take the vaccine. It's not that hard.
Yeah. Well, I think that in many ways, like people like him and a lot of right wing grifters, like there's okay, because I think that a lot of them have gotten the vaccine because like I don't know, like there's so many grifters where their entire life, like their lifestyle, is contingent on them basically doing right wing virtue signaling, where they have to do all of the things to show that they are the proper right wing conservative to
Yeah.
their like just mass of hooting hogs as their fans, and like so like there are tons and tons of like conservative media people. Like Ben Shapiro has gotten the vaccine, probably. Like
Yeah.
he will never say that he did, and a lot of them will never say that they did, but they did.
Yeah. Like,
You can tell them.
yeah.
You can tell which ones are the true believers and which ones are not, because the ones that are true believers are dying.
Yeah. The ones who are true believers, the ones who are true believers are, who are just stupid. They're dying. But the ones who are true believers who like know that like COVID is still a thing. Those are the ones who are like still at home, still like they're still isolating somewhat. And then we have the people like you say, like Ben Shapiro or Steven Crowder. I'm not sure about Crowder actually. Crowder does seem like a complete clown. But like yeah, like Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro like has taken it because you can see like he's out and about, like living his normal life, and but he's smart enough to know that he can't actually do that if COVID's around and if he doesn't have the vaccine. He is too smart for
Yeah,
that.
he isn't. He lives the life of like the urban liberal that all conservatives hate. He just like once in a blue moon drives to Home Hardware to buy a single piece of wood for an Instagram photo.
Plank. Why did he buy a plank?
Because Home Hardware was doing something, so people were giving shit to Home Hardware and saying don't buy from Home Hardware. So he went to go. It's basically the same logic of like the people who were burning the Nikes that they had already paid for because they
Yeah.
said Black Lives Matter or something.
He went to Home Depot and got one single plank of wood. And I remember a lot of people mock him for this, but I do think the reason why he got a bit of wood, because they have other shit, right? They have like stationery. Um, they have things that you could buy and actually use, but he can't. The only reason why he got a piece of plank, I know this in my heart, is because they walked around the store, thought about what they would get, like what would look good, and they thought about stationery, but there was no stationery that like can make you look like alpha enough or like enough like of a masculine like alpha male. And the only thing that he thought that he could buy was construction equipment. I could get that. That's manly. That's like gonna jive with my audience.
But it's also like a little piece of wood. Like
I know,
like
it's not enough.
like you can tell that he is the like Starbucks, like, you know, he went to university.
Yeah.
He's like he's the debate champion. Like he's a giant dork, and also he is like if he wasn't just grifting off of conservatives, and by the way, he's doing a very good job. He basically owns Facebook. I don't know if you guys have seen some of the data, but he like Ben Shapiro is like the most widely shared media source on Facebook or something like that
Yeah.
very often.
Multiple times over, I think, too, because he has multiple pages too. Like he has his own page in the Daily Wire and all that shit.
Yeah, so but like that like he just buy a little piece of wood, and then sometimes he looks like he wants to fuck a turkey. So like I don't know.
It's wonderful too, because not only is he this type of like, I hesitant yeah, coastal liberal Starbucks drinker type, like you mentioned. Not only is he like that, but his entire staff is like that because that's a lot of people who work in online media are just like that. Um, that because if you work with computers all day, that's sort of the person that you become. So I know that like they thought about getting a piece of wood, but no one actually there, no one in his crew or him has ever actually worked with any wood.
Yeah, Ben
So he
Shapiro.
was like, I'll get some and it's gonna look good. Um,
Ben Shapiro is basically committing professional elder abuse, where he is just like getting boomers mad so that they'll give him money. That's his entire like.
yeah.
But other than that, like, dude's he is most definitely double vaccinated, triple vaccinated at this point, and he would like never be caught dead like touching tools. Okay.
Yeah.
We're pretty good thank you for we got $5 dues, which is the official name for Australian dollars. Thank you, J Lord. I watched your video on crypto and I respectfully disagree. I would love to see more Dead Nation videos. Okay. Good thing for watching that. Thank you. All right.
Respectful comment. I respect it.
All right. Then the first, so we occasionally answer questions, and we are a little, we rambled a little bit more than we usually do.
But we rambled about politics.
Yeah.
So we're actually like sort of on topic for once.
Yeah, we
and
didn't.
not about like Stargate.
We didn't talk about Paradox, even though apparently their CEO just resigned this morning.
Okay, really?
Yeah, she resigned, and it's sort of like a reaction to the fact that like Paradox has been fucking up quite a bit in the last little bit. Like the Europa Universalis guy had to apologize for the expansions being bad, apparently. And
that's actually quite valid.
and their vampire game is basically dead.
Yeah.
And I think there was something else that failed pretty hard. I don't know.
It's good that they're doing something though. Like I'm not gonna talk too much about products because like we then it's gonna be derailed. But like apologizing over one of the expansions like makes sense because they were selling a $20 expansion pack that broke the game. Like it literally broke the game. Like and it wasn't finished.
Oh, they're saying they
$20.
Yeah, they apologized for like apparently 2 years of low quality expansions for Europa Universalis 4, and I was like, okay, I didn't know that game was in such a mess. Okay.
Oh, it's a complete mess. It's like, remember how people used to make fun of like EA for releasing Sims stuff, or yeah, or just make fun of like video games generally. Remember how people used to make fun of Bethesda? Was it Bethesda? No, it's not Bethesda. Whoever made horse armor for Oblivion, like that became like a huge thing, right? Imagine that, but like every single expansion pack twice a year for like a decade. Like complete insanity.
Yep. Still
Anyway.
alive. Thank you for 5 USDs. Did you guys go over the SCOTUS refusing to overturn the Texas abortion ban? Oh
Not
yeah.
really. We made fun about Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
But that's it.
Yeah, so yeah, the news, I'll probably go over this more next Tuesday, but essentially the Supreme Court did a thing where they refused to see a bill that was going up to peeled up to them that because they refused to see it, the decision went down to the lower court, which means that now effectively Texas has banned abortion before 6 weeks, which is before most people know that they're pregnant. And also the like timeline between even the point when a pregnancy test would be positive and when you could get an abortion is like so small that a lot of people wouldn't even be able to schedule one before they could do it. And they have a whole snitch program where you can sue somebody for $10,000 for getting an abortion, and you don't even have to know them or have anything to do with that situation. So,
And yeah, a $10,000 reward, basically. It's
yeah,
like a bounty for hunting people who are get abortions.
yeah. So essentially, only rich people can get abortions in Texas now. And that's what it does too, is because the United States is sort of a British style system. That means that it sets a precedent that other states can use to try and do the same thing. And it will eventually. They effectively open the doors for states to ban abortions. That's
Yeah.
essentially what happened. This is a thing that everybody knew was going to happen the second that the Supreme Court, like Trump got 3 Supreme Court appointees, and it's sort of the end result of a probably like near 40-year project by the evangelicals and the right wing to get this into positions. So in some ways, you can say, hey, this is what happens when you have 4 decades of being able to focus on a project. But and yeah, Twitter liberals have gone to blaming Bernie Sanders supporters because that's usually what they do. But the real blame is on the Democrats who did not pass an abortion law in their months in office, knowing that this was going to be an issue. Because if they passed a law, a lot of the reason why the Supreme Court seems to be doing a lot of the legwork in American politics these days is because the Congress refuses to do any laws to actually do these
Yeah.
things. So Congress did not do anything to protect abortion, and then as well, there are definitely ways to fuck with the Supreme Court that everybody was talking about during the election, like packing the court or doing anything to change the court, and Biden didn't do that either. So
I love I love the return to normal of
yeah,
Joe Biden.
President Theoden King just sat in his chair, getting old and staring at nothing.
Yeah, it's really quite horrifying too, because like it's I think like the isn't like the last hope now, because the court is going to hear arguments on Roe v. Wade. Is it this month or like next month? Like really soon. Uh, so there is like a hope that like if they talk about Roe v. Wade and sort of like define something a bit better, that might like help protect like things a bit more federally. But considering what the court is right now, there is a real chance that just Roe v. Wade is just gonna go and people can just ban abortions again.
Yeah. The other So that's it sucks. It's really bad. It was something that everybody knew was going to come at some point. I guess they
Yeah.
just didn't expect it was going to come so soon. But yeah, this was something everybody was worried about, and it happened, which is bad. Although,
Sucks. Okay.
yeah, to really change tone though, Joe Biden has had a kind of based couple of weeks. Like pulling out of
Really?
it, I still like. I'm going to stand by this. Pulling out of Afghanistan instantly makes Joe Biden the best president of my lifetime. That's an extraordinarily low bar, but
I was about to say, yeah, like it doesn't take a lot.
actually ending the war in Afghanistan and actually like the actual fighting of the deep state. I love how the QAnon people are mad at him for what is essentially actually fighting the deep state, but okay. And like how
Yeah.
the and like with the media all pissed off at him, and like I think it's because he knows he doesn't want to get reelected, so he doesn't give a shit. He just did it. But there's two.
Which, like, to be fair, there's something to be said for that too, right? But like, that's kind of cool. Like, you should want to be a president who doesn't want to get reelected, because then you can just do this shit. Because otherwise, you're just thinking about like Obama not doing fuck all for the first 4 years of his presidency, and then for the next 4 years doing like a tiny like the bare minimum to just like do something, and then still like try to be as presentable as possible for the next person to become elected after him, so it doesn't ruin the party. So Biden is good because he doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, I actually am under the impression that like everyone tries to find presidential comparisons, and I've gone on the record to say that the closest presidential administration to Joe Biden's is Woodrow Wilson, but only in 1920. because the not so much in like what they did, but in how the White House is functioning.
Fair.
For those who don't know, in 1919, Woodrow Wilson had a stroke, and he was basically incapable of talking or doing anything for the last year of his presidency. And so his White House staff, but they hid it from the public, so his White House staff and his wife basically ran the country, which is close to Joe Biden, because the other two based stories are him falling asleep while the
That's not true.
Come on.
It's not true. That one's fake.
No.
I'm sorry, but it's fake. He's just looking down. He's probably tired, but he's not sleeping.
Damn it. And then I guess he didn't check his watch during a thing for the troops either.
Oh, he may have done that. Fuck the troops. But I have heard that the thing looking down was a fake. Yeah, he was just looking down. He wasn't sleeping.
Oh yeah, there is also Ronald Reagan with his advanced dementia near the end of his presidency. It's weird how we keep having presidents that are just completely, that like a monarchy was in a good position when its leaders just were like a long string of people who were completely incompetent.
Yeah.
Things are going well. Okay, so first question of the stream is just, can you say hashtag Lula 2022? Thanks. Oh yeah, of course. Hashtag Lula 2022 for sure.
I don't know what that is.
That is Lula da Silva, the leftist former president of Brazil, who got out of prison and is looking like he's gonna beat Bolsonaro next year in the election.
Oh, fuck yes.
Like, what's it called? It's great because Bolsonaro basically won in a coup against the People's Party or the Workers' Party by putting the president in prison over a completely like bullshit made up corruption scandal.
Charge. Yeah.
And then while he was president, freaking they find out, oh yeah, he did not, it turns out Lula actually did nothing wrong. They released him, and now he's going to run for president again. And on top of that, it looks like he's winning. So, yeah. Some fucking king shit right there.
Faith.
All right. And he's pretty awesome. All right,
my god, holy crap. I'm just looking at the polls right now. Good god. That is one major shift in the polls. He went from like 17% in at the beginning of the year to like close to 50.
Yeah.
Compared to Bolsonaro, who's remained steadily at 30%. That's pretty good.
Yeah. So Brazil does 2-round presidential elections like in France, and people are expecting that Lula could win this election in the first round, which like never happens when you have 2-round presidential elections.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to Dilma Rousseff? She lost the election. I don't know what she's up to now. I imagine she's still probably part of the party somehow. Okay, next question. This one, okay. I love Paradox games, but I recognize they have something of a fascist problem. Is there any way to solve this? And if so, how do you think this could be achieved?
I don't know how to solve fascism in the subculture. I think the only good thing is just to sort of like always just like consistently call it out when it happens and shut it out from any circle. I think that's how you typically keep them out.
Community management. I would also add that they should be more historically accurate in order to, because a lot of times the reason why fascists like Paradox games is because Paradox games are historically inaccurate in the ways that fascists are historically inaccurate about the past.
Yeah.
Like Europa Universalis doesn't really factor into like all of the genocide and the horrible stuff that happens there and how that like negatively affects the country. I think we've talked before about how Hearts of Iron the Holocaust doesn't exist. And
don't worry about it.
Germany pays no penalty for that. But I do see some signs of good stuff coming out of this, like about how Crusader Kings 3 has like gay characters and asexual characters and like and just things like that they're updating now with like cultural synthesis and how religions can like shape and have
be more compatible with each other over time and depending on region and culture. Like they're making it more complex in the ways that actually matter.
Yeah.
Because the way culture used to work, right, is you conquer lands and you force them to become Swedish or whatever. Um, but not, they're making a new update now that's supposed to be the way that like if one culture moves into another culture, you could still like displace people and be bad, but you could also just like have cultural understanding and create a new culture, which is how
Yeah.
most cultures form. That's how you get English.
Yeah, so you can end up with times like, because like the thing is, when you play, Crusader Kings 2, and you play it like the earliest timeline, you end up with like you end up with like by the end of the game cultures that, oh my god, cultures that to this day have like they don't exist by
Yeah.
the time that comes wrong. Like they have like Visigoths and stuff like that, and then in like the 1400s, and it's like wait, no.
Hold on.
So it's a lot
No,
more.
but yeah, and it seems like that it seems like they're taking a bit of a new direction with Crusader Kings 3, both in the sense that like they're trying to be a bit more like mass appeal, but also trying to be a bit less appealing to fascists generally. Just the fact that they like removed like it's just a small thing when they released Crusader Kings 3, just like they don't have Deus Vult anymore in it. Because that was in the second game, right? And then it became like a meme in like white nationalist circles with like Deus Vult, we will take Jerusalem, yada 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 yada. Um, and because it became a meme, they were like, okay, let's not do that.
Yeah, good
Well,
stuff. And yeah, that and like more active community management would probably be the big things to deal with it.
yeah.
Um,
I know that they've been doing that like a lot more recently too. I just a few years ago, I remember that there were a lot of Nazis and fascists like working at Paradox, so you can see where sort of some of these biases come from a little bit. But I have heard that they're sort of like they're getting better at either phasing those people out or like not having them be as like prominent or influential in the content. Especially since it's becoming like a big company now. Like they don't want to they can survive being a little like fascist tainted when they're like a niche indie company because if you only sell to fascists and you're a tiny company you're gonna be fine. But if you're a big company, having a connection to fascism is gonna be like it's bad optics, sweetie. Rethink this.
yep. Oh, there was another piece of news. Canada's getting a whole bunch of vaccine passports. So,
Oh,
including Ontario now, on the 22nd, we're going to. So, in 20 days, you can't do any of the indoor stuff if you don't have a vaccine record. So, yeah,
I,
that.
w- I wish we had something like that.
Yeah. It started with Quebec, and then all the provinces are like picking it up. Okay. And yeah, people have compared it to apartheid, and now they're saying that like they said that Doug Ford is like North Korea now. Yeah, it's fun. They did a big protest all around the. They anti-vaxxers did a countrywide protest where everybody would basically harass doctors at the biggest hospital in whatever city they're in.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's going real great. We're having fun here.
I love to live in interesting times.
Now,
We made that joke before the pandemic too, like right,
yeah,
like living in historical times, and then a global pandemic hit, the scale of which we haven't seen in quite a while. Um,
somebody at the end of 2019
fuck
said,
this.
"How could this get any worse?"
It jinxed us all,
Yeah,
and it's just gonna get worse. I can't wait for next year.
yeah. I can't wait to what new content they think of.
Next update is just gonna be some like asteroid potential impact somewhere. We're
Yeah,
we're due for one, right? We're due for like a super volcano or some shit.
yeah. That sounds that sounds good.
Yeah.
I would take that as a relief because at least that apocalypse, you don't have to go to work.
That's true.
Okay, next one. Do you think the Pakistan Taliban will start getting American weapons now? I mean, beyond what was collected via the pillaging of. Okay, so you were in the military, so you know probably a little bit more about this stuff. But the Taliban's taken a bunch of munitions and stuff like that because when
Yeah.
militaries pull out of a country, oftentimes it becomes cheaper to just leave the shit there and leave.
Yep.
So they've tried to disable their most fun toys, but for the most part, they just left whole warehouses full of Humvees and M16s and stuff like that the Taliban have gotten their hands on now.
Yeah.
And
a couple of MRAPs too. Yeah.
that happens whenever any country pulls out of a war zone, especially because near the end they were trying to prioritize getting as many people onto those planes as possible. So.
Yeah, especially in such a hectic evacuation, the equipment is just left behind. I do know that they sabotaged helicopters and planes because the Taliban and even the Afghan government before them didn't really have sort of the framework necessary to support those things. So I've seen some graphics going around talking about how the Taliban now has 16 Black Hawk helicopters. And maybe they have 2 that work, and in 4 months they're gonna have none who work.
Also,
you need to do a ton of maintenance on those stuff for it to work, and unless they're getting professional help from some nation, they're not gonna have those in the air for any significant amount of time.
plus, also, if you think about it, it's actually really smart because what helicopters do more often than not is crash and kill whoever's on board. So, if anything, they're trying to disable the Taliban by giving them helicopters, the objectively worst machine that has ever been invented.
Joe Biden is playing the long game, is what you're saying. He's pulling out so he can leave as many helicopters as possible in a long-term assassination of the Taliban leadership. It's genius.
Yeah. Especially Black Hawk helicopters, because I don't know if you know anything about American military hardware, but it's awful.
It fucking sucks.
It's expensive, but it's not good. They're the ones who make the jet planes that decapitate people and can't launch if it's raining. So,
these are the people who spent trillions. These are the people who spent trillions of dollars developing a jet fighter, and then halfway through, when it's obvious the jet fighter doesn't work, and then find themselves in a situation where it's cheaper to still make the jet fighter and buy them than it is to cancel the deal, because for some reason, military hardware companies in the U.S. have the U.S. government doesn't exist. It's actually just a bunch of defense contractors, because these defense contractors make contracts with the government to develop weapons, but they do have in case of pullout, aborting the deal, right? But they add a fee to that is often greater than the cost of the weapons themselves. And I can't imagine that any reasonable person would actually agree to a deal like that unless they're working for that same industry. The U.S. government doesn't exist. It's literally all just weapon companies buying shit from themselves.
Yeah, it's just
That's why they're still developing the fucking jet fighter. By the way, I don't remember exactly what it's called, but it's costing trillions of dollars. They're still developing it, and they're still gonna buy them, but they suck and they're bad, and everyone knows they're bad.
Are you talking about the Osprey, the sort of turbine thing that's almost like a plane helicopter that kills people constantly? They can't get it.
Oh no, they made that one, and they're still using it.
Even though it kills half of the people who use it die.
They still see it as a win. That one is still that's a success story. And it's still trash. I love American hardware.
The Osprey is the number one machine. The Osprey is actually not a giant waste of money. It is the best way to end the American Empire. They just made I don't know, it just seems like the American Air Force, just if you were to look at a sort of collage of all the things that are going on, it just looks like those early videos of people trying to make airplanes for the first time, where they're flapping their wings and jumping off of ledges and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
You know how most of the UFO sightings recently have been from like the Navy or the Air Force? I'm starting to think that like they're not actually aliens. They're just like bits and pieces of planes that like fall off like during supersonic flight.
Yep.
Because that's the only thing that makes sense.
Yeah, everyone thinks that like at Area 51 they're like reverse engineering all of these jets, and it's like no.
No,
Hey,
they're just.
Jesse Gender, thank
Oh
you so
shit.
much for the subscription. Much appreciated. Glad to see you're here. Much appreciated. Sorry about that. I didn't want to
Hi.
interrupt you.
No, no, it's good. I didn't have anything important to say except for I think that American military hardware is just like comically funny trash.
Yeah, it's. I always I don't even know what to call it, but like it's an example of this. I don't even know if it's like it's a vibe. It's something that I just call a vibe, which I call vomiting champagne, which is you ever have like you'll notice the situations where this happens and you'll completely get it. You know the vibe when there is something you are being incredibly wasteful with something that is extremely expensive.
Hmm.
Like like the kind of idea of like when like a country is falling apart and they like raid the president's house and they all are like you just see like a bunch of like working class Joes walking away with like $300 bottles of wine and just getting shit faced in the streets. Like
Yeah.
the kind of like the kind of like weird mix of like cheap and expensive that only really exists when something is falling apart or a lot of money has been mismanaged in some way. It's I don't know. It's only a vibe, and you only see it every so often, and it's very special when you see it. But the U.S. military, is basically that all the time.
Yeah. It never ends.
Oh, and somebody asked what kind of Canadian media that I look at. I always talk about this. This is just a good media rule of thumb. There are two types of media sources. One are the ones who have enough money to field correspondents around the world, and while they might have, kind of like they're usually governments or big corporations, so they definitely have like a perspective, but they're like usually your only source of like finding out what's going on in the world because they actually got like a guy there to take notes. That's like, the big ones, like so Canada, that's like CBC, CTV, those kind of people.
Hmm.
And then there's like analysis, which, you have to like, that's more about like looking for people who have good takes and stuff like that. And oftentimes I look for journalists instead of organizations, but rabble.ca is a good Canadian one. It's a Canadian, like, it's kind of like a Canadian leftist news site that transparency thing. I volunteered, or I didn't volunteer for them, but I almost got a job with them. I went through training to become like a podcaster for them at one point, but then that project never panned out because they ran out of money.
Oh, damn.
Okay, the next question we got here from our non-Dutch name,
Uh,
Mia. What did Swedes think would happen to them if the Cold War went hot, both before and after mutually assured destruction was a thing?
oh, we're Russia. The Russians are coming.
The
That's
SSSR.
that's basically what people thought. To much to the horror and preparation of like far right people who prepared to build bunkers in like France and shit. Because no one really built bunkers in Sweden. Not because like we thought that we were gonna get nuked directly or anything. We didn't think that, but more in the sense of like if the Cold War goes hot, like America's not coming. Like Russia is right there. Um, and a lot of like communists in Sweden were like, "Fuck yeah,
That
the
never,
Soviets are coming. We are ready for this."
like that never ended. Like to this day, like Sweden still has mandatory military service because it's right next to Russia.
It's right. Yeah, we got rid of it for a little bit, and then we were like, "Actually, no, Russia's still scary."
Yeah.
Historical rival that we think a lot about, and I don't think the Russians care.
Yep.
No, actually, they do care because we made a video. No, yeah, they do care because like at our own like music festival thing, like before Eurovision, where we decide the songs, one of our like comic groups or whatever, they made a song to like make fun of Russia. I think in Crimea during when that happened, like they just mocked Russia for invading Crimea, and for some reason that became like a meme in sort of Russian media culture. So they made like a response video about like how scared and frightened Sweden is over big scary Russia. Ha ha ha. They're like they're so silly for being scared, while also like semi-threatening to be like, we could though, we could.
Yeah, Russia. Russia doesn't threaten; they make promises.
Can be promises too. And it's also like not paranoia either because like during the Cold War, we the Swedish Navy and did in the past and also still today, like Pim Corman says, still plays like hide and seek with the Russian submarines in the Baltic Sea because Russian submarines like keep coming into Swedish like water space and like into Stockholm because we have like deep waters, just because they can and I guess do espionage and shit, and the Swedish Navy gets mocked incessantly for it, which is super weird because like they get accused for being like paranoid, but also in the Cold War, like a Russian, like a Soviet submarine just stranded on a Swedish island, like way like in within our waters, like by the coast, just like crashed into the coastline basically, and like they got arrested by Swedish cops, who came to them and was like, "Hey, you're not supposed to be here." To which the Soviets responded by sending out their entire Baltic fleet to going towards Sweden in a very determined pace. Just like, sure. So despite like the paranoia and everything, like that's a real thing that actually happened. That most people are like, just silly Russians.
A lot of times people say the thing is like everyone is like, oh yeah, you're being paranoid about Russia, and it's like, you know what, like Russia is the country that you kind of have to be paranoid about because every time you have a suspicion they're doing something, they're kind of doing it. They usually are in some capacity.
Yeah. Remember how like just like random journalists in like the UK and I think like France just died of like weird polonium poisoning or whatever?
Yeah, polonium poisoning.
And they arrested like Russian tourists.
Yeah.
And everyone was just like, "Oh, that's weird."
There was that one guy who got killed by polonium in a bullet that was shot from a gun disguised as an umbrella.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, like
the Russians are still doing all of this shit. It's just that everyone is thinking about China and what's it called? Like cyber attacks. Russia's still like doing old school espionage.
Yep. Yeah, like they do all the stuff that like were actually in spy movies. Like they're the ones who actually have like they find pretty models and train them to become spies so that they can like honeypot people and stuff like that. Like every time you hear about those like weird things, they're like, oh, that sounds like something from a spy movie. It's like, oh yeah, Russia did that. So just ask about how
the same thing goes for the US too, right? Like whenever you talk about like weird conspiracy theories about like what the CIA did, they also did that. The Cold War was just insane.
Yeah, the CIA side is like the Russian side is like, what if you had no money but like were infinitely ingenuitous and you just like thought of weird random like Wile E. Coyote type tricks to spy on people, while the United States is, what if you gave the dumbest people infinite money to spy on people?
If Russia and if like the what is it, like the SNB or whatever, the modern day Russian intelligence
FSB.
agency, if that bureau teamed up with the CIA, we have like the most ingenious people with most money. They could take over the world. So I guess we're thankful that they're like locked in eternal struggle in a weird way.
Even when there isn't even a communism to do anymore. There's not even like they're not even fighting about anything anymore. It's just like they're both like extremely corrupt kleptocracies run by like a rich oligarchy that only have money because they basically stripped all of the infrastructure that their country had for parts. Those are the people running the United States and the Russian Federation right now. Somebody just,
they're still fighting for interesting reasons.
somebody just mentioned Havana syndrome, and I'm like, oh man, I want to research a little bit more on this because it's fucking hilarious. Have you heard?
I did some research about it because if you, okay, yeah, I did because the Havana syndrome is the thing where like diplomats for the U.S. like get weirdly sick.
They get headaches or something.
Yeah.
Apparently,
So
Kamala Harris got it recently.
oh shit. Because I did some research for an episode of the podcast that I do, Leechfest, which is a medical history podcast, and we just recorded an episode on mass hysteria. And
Leechfest. Where can I find and download this episode of
oh,
Leechfest?
you can download. Well, it's not out. That one's not out yet, but it's going to be out soon. You can download it when it eventually comes out on the Acast app early. If you're a patron of ours, you get early access to episodes, or you go to Spotify to Leechfest and find it there.
You're saying that if
you
I
can
went to
Leechfest
Spotify,
podcast.
you're saying that if I went to Spotify and wrote in Leechfest, I'd be able to listen to a podcast about medical history?
Yeah, it's called Leechfest, and it recently made an episode about LSD, for example. That's fun, or neurodivergence. We have all sorts of episodes available.
Wow, there's so much good content over at Leechfest.
I love Leechfest. But from what I found while doing research on mass hysteria was that like Havana syndrome was thought for a long time to be mass hysteria. And then like recently someone did a study for people who had Havana syndrome, and there's like neurological differences. Like there's like something is happening with Havana syndrome. Like it's actually not mass hysteria. It's actually like a physical thing. And because I thought it was mass hysteria for like ages. Like some people got sick in Havana once, and now every single diplomat for the US is like worried and has anxiety or and becomes a hypochondriac. But no, some weird shit's up, and I like it.
Thank
In
you,
like a
Dead.
decade, we're gonna find out some cool shit.
Yeah. Thank you, Dead Bard Society, for subscribing with Twitch Prime. Yeah, it's up there with like. I still think that it's possible that the CIA has something that they can give people to make them have heart attacks,
Oh, 100%.
or to give them cancer. The fact that like every major social democratic leader in like the Western Hemisphere randomly died of cancer one year is a little weird.
They definitely have a cancer gun.
Hard
Like
to-
for sure they do. Like they have to be able to like, because you can beam radiation, right?
Yep. Bernie was too strong.
Bernie was too strong. You can't outburn the burn.
They tried to do the heart attack gun on him, and he was too strong.
No, I also fully believe that they have those weapons. They developed some weird shit with MK Ultra, and that's just the shit we know about.
Yeah. And I feel like the ultimate assassination thing would be to figure out how to give people cancer. Like that feels,
Yeah.
and like a believable cancer, because I'm sure it'd be like easy to give somebody cancer if you just like irradiated them, but then like they would all be dying of like thyroid cancer and stuff like that. That's like
Yeah.
all those weird cancers that only happen with radiation. But to like realistically give somebody like I don't know pancreatic cancer or something like that, that's a trick.
That's a trick.
Because Jack Lee doesn't even.
I fully believe they have it.
Yeah.
Like 100%, because it's a perfect assassination.
Yeah.
Dude, it's not a coincidence that assassinations have gone down in recent years. It's not because they stopped doing assassinations. It's just that they got better at hiding them. Because if there's like a gunshot, because if someone dies of a gunshot, then that person becomes a martyr. So the CIA obviously has dedicated a lot of energy into finding a good way to mask an assassination while looking like natural causes. That would be the perfect assassination.
Yeah, you see, here's the thing. It's like sometimes we go to like the CIA has something that will make people get cancer. But at the same time, they then were like, let's kill Fidel Castro by putting a bomb in a cigar. Like that's the thing. It's like the CIA is really dumb people with infinite money, and I don't. It's like which side do you go for? The ones who like could not figure out how to cover up an assassination to save their life, like they just get instantly found out the second they try anything, or is it like they can make people have cancer with super weapons?
Yeah, you're actually you convinced me completely here too, because I just remembered an Alice of a Zandam tweet that's just like all of this stuff could be real, but it's not. I flipped completely. It's not because like I think Alice tweeted something about like that the CIA definitely did a lot of fucked up shit, but they didn't kill JFK because he died, and also he the guy who shot him didn't like miss and fall out the window.
Yeah, like
that's a stupid the CIA is. That's what they will do.
Yeah, if America, if the CIA had killed JFK, they would have missed. The guy would have fallen out the window, and then the guy would be like Robert CIA man, and would instantly be like they would instantly find like he would like be found by like the cops would like arrest him, and in his pockets would just be like paychecks from the CIA, and like.
Yeah. Oh, that's good shit. I'm just thinking, and now I'm just thinking about all the times they tried to kill Fidel Castro. Is the story? Do you think the story about the CIA sending like an assassin to kill him and him seducing the assassin is true? Because it sounds fake, but then again, it's Fidel Castro.
Yeah, Fidel Castro
Like,
is the greatest Chad in human history. So, I don't know for sure. And also, like, come on, look at him. He had that like rugged, good look, especially when he was young. Whew.
I hesitate to respond to this. While I do agree with you, I hesitate to say it because he looks suspiciously like my dad.
Oh,
So
interesting.
that so to me, it's more like a paternal feeling.
Oh, so it's like Freudian.
It's a little Freudian, yeah, for sure. But there's a part of me, there's a small part of me that's like, you know the thing about Justin Trudeau being the kid of
Yeah, I was about to say, does that mean you're Justin
Sorry?
Trudeau's half sister?
No, because here's the fucked up thing, right? Like my dad, like my dad. I've met my grandfather, right? But he does like, and he's a great guy, and he died when I was very young. Very great guy. Doesn't look that much like my dad. My grandmother, though, who was also like far like old, died when I was very young. Hasn't really matter. Great woman. Spent some time traveling in the Caribbean. And my dad is suspiciously like dark-skinned for someone who is Dutch.
Which means
Like,
that they have any pigment whatsoever.
Yeah, exactly. He's frequently seen as a person of color, which he isn't. Like he's a white guy. So there's a small part of me who knows that it's not true, but there's a tiny part of me in here that's just like, is Fidel Castro my grandfather?
Your half uncle is then pretty rich and Prime Minister of Canada.
What did you say?
Your half uncle is pretty rich and the Prime Minister of Canada. You should get in on that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Just part of the greater Castro cinematic universe. It would be funny if he just like serially seduced like every world power's like spouse whenever they came to visit.
It's not impossible though. Like I feel like if anyone would do this, if anyone would
Listen,
actually do
yeah,
this,
I'm this extremely charismatic and good-looking guy who was also the president of this tropical paradise. Like
I have a lot
Havana
of resources
syndrome.
in this.
Havana syndrome's actually pregnancy. Oh no.
Oh shit. Fidel Castro's not dead. He's just retired so he can focus full time on seducing people.
Yeah, he's just retired. They put him out to stud. This is the new way to.
Oh my God.
Oh man, this is a very different way of Seeds of Revolution. Okay.
He's outbreeding capitalism.
Yeah. It's a one-man breeding crew.
Oh my God.
All right.
That's good shit.
That was good shit. Okay. One time I was playing Victoria 2 with the Cold War mod. France went to war with the USSR and lost hard to the point that southern France became a Soviet republic.
Yeah.
What's the craziest thing that happened in Vic 2?
Oh, that's a good question. I did actually earlier today. I did form the Arab Union as Saudi Arabia in 1885 by just causing like the Ottoman Empire to implode. But the reason it imploded was because the Confederate States, who were alive at this time, had gone to war against the Californian Republic, and the Californian Republic had the Ottoman Empire within their sort of sphere of influence.
Okie dokie.
Yeah. I mean, of course. And the Confederate States were allied with the Russian Empire, so they invaded the Ottoman Empire, leading to the mass instability. So I could.
What a cursed Crimean War.
Listen, it's weird. America's not even a great power.
I
They're like 32 or some shit, like rank 32 of all nations. They completely collapsed. I don't know why. They keep having rebellions. I think they're gonna fall apart.
The last big Vicky 2 campaign that I played, I think I've said this before on stream, but it's fine. You remember, like one of I think the wildest things that happened in our like the real world Vicky 2 campaign was the Belgians conquering Congo.
Yeah.
But in mine, it was the Independent Republic of Quebec that did like just like outright won the race for Africa, the scramble for Africa, and also had conquered Oman at one point. So Quebecois Oman, which might have the best food in the universe. But
Yeah, actually.
we invented the what's it called, the shawarma patin, like like a century early. So yeah.
No, actually, I did a stream once where I played the German Empire, but I played them as like anti-colonial. So every time I conquered new land, I would always like release it to become independent. And I wanted to do that to the U.S. because I wanted to just fuck up the U.S. entirely. So I conquered Florida, thinking that I could release like a monarchist Confederate state, which is the most cursed thing I've ever said. But I couldn't, so I just had to hold on to German Florida forever. But it did lead me to create German New England, German California, and German Deseret. And all of those things they belong in sort of the weird Kaiserreich community, I guess.
So the thing about that sounds base as shit, is you found a solution to a really big problem in our world, which is if Germany had colonized Florida, then there would be a tropical place where German tourists could go, which means that they would not go to other countries. And
Yes.
we don't have to deal with German tourists anymore.
That's actually something that happened in the game because I got an island in the Caribbean, but I couldn't release it as independent because it was just an empty island. Like there wasn't a nation there. But what happened was it was the only colonial nation that I had left because I released everything else, which meant that every single migrant in my country went to that tiny island. So this is an island that's like smaller than New York City, I think, that had like 4 or 5 million people in like 1850 or whatever, just moved there from Prussia.
You found a way to deal with the German tourist problem. You just found
Put
some
them all on
island.
one island. And eventually they got like a nation core. I think it was like Saint Barth or whatever. It wasn't Saint Barth, it was something like that. And so I figured, nice, I'll release them. I'll release this independent nation of German vacation land, and but because they were so overwhelmingly German, it was like a German nation. That was like their prime culture. They were German. So then when I unified Germany, all of the constituent states of like the former Holy Roman Empire and like Hanover and Bavaria and all of that stuff, that all joined up into the new German Empire. But also this shitty little island in the Caribbean with like 4 million Germans on it.
See,
that
like,
was fun.
that's like the kind of like weird thing that makes no sense, but is 100% something that would happen in our world.
Yeah, like something that definitely could have happened. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Next one we got here. Oh man, we're okay. Mia, I learned from some friends that German and Danish steelworkers used to be paid in beer. Was that a thing in Sweden?
Oh yeah. I think that's been a thing like all over Europe, right? Like during early industrialization.
Oh, what? Okay. Oh, I guess like there were like during the colonial times, Americans were paid in rum because they had a kind of dearth of cash. So instead of cash, they were paid in rum or whiskey or whatever.
Yeah, I think I don't know why they were paid in beer, but it has definitely happened. I don't think it was their entire paycheck though. I think they also got like company credits that they could use in the company shop or whatever. But they did also get beer
Nice.
as part of like their pay. But it's some of that like shitty beer that's just like it has just calories and it gives you energy. But it's very watered down, doesn't taste much of anything. It's kind of gross. Like that type of beer. The
Pat-
things you give to like rail workers in the 1820s.
Jeez, Patreon, get on this shit. Patreon should give us a percentage of our patronage in beer.
I'd be down with that actually. Some whiskey. I'd love that.
Yeah. Okay.
Patreon is eventually going to evolve into giving us script though, right? You know that.
P-Bucks.
They're gonna open it. They're gonna open a yeah, P-Bucks. They're just gonna open a store where we can buy stuff. That's gonna happen. I know it.
Yep.
Surprised OnlyFans hasn't already.
And I just saw I was just looking on my other screen for a second, and Jagmeet Singh, who is the NDP leader, who's running for prime minister right now, who's struggling in Quebec, is just having a patin party in Quebec to like try and get voters to go to him. So I love it. All right, pandering is fun. Okay. Next one we got is a bit of a mouthful, so let's break this one down.
All right.
So often when people talk about incels and the terrible things that they do, they say stuff like, you shouldn't take it out on society if you can't get girls to talk to you. And I think we should avoid that rhetoric because that's not actually most incels' problem is. It's not the case that most incels are constantly trying to ask women out and getting rejected. Typically, they're male loners who don't talk to women or basically anyone at all and then become violently misogynistic because they're dissatisfied with life and the media they consume tells them it's because they're not having sex. Like maybe the real problem is if there's a minority of people who are constantly trying to enter into relationships but can't because they're too ugly or something, but most people who call themselves incels aren't actually in that situation, and we validate their worldview when we talk like they really are. Agree or disagree?
That's not a wrong thing to say. I would actually agree with the statement of the question here. I don't think that it's like a valuable was it called like conversation to have though? Like because I feel like once you get into like because you're definitely right that like a lot of people who like get stuck in incel culture get there because of like extreme social isolation and like mental health isolation issues. But there's also a difference between like being miserable due to social isolation and being like tricked that your solution is to have sex, and like belonging to a like we're embracing a sort of like hyper misogynistic, like almost pseudo terrorist group. Because I definitely feel like we can definitely sort of like extend empathy, I think, to like a lot of like dissatisfied, lonely people. I think that should be fine. But I think there's a sort of difference between that and people who go out to do like terror attacks. But then there's also like a difference between like people who go out and do terror attacks and people who like identify as incels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when you look at online spaces at the incel community, like, yeah, people who have had conversations with women don't think about them the way that these guys do.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of like the people who are trying to get smooches but not getting smooches, and getting sad about that. There is a class of men who are like that. It is all of them in their 20s. That's basically what being in your 20s is. So yeah, there is definitely something different from that.
Mm.
And yeah, I think, and yeah, it's like this social awkwardness that then finding solace in that feeling in like these online spaces that are like hyper toxic and kind of like this downward spiraling death drive that kind of is really still I haven't found articulated better than in the ContraPoints video on the subject.
Yeah. The thing is, we get empathy, just saying we shouldn't validate their worldview. I don't think like it's sort of like validating their worldview to sort of counter their argument the way that they present it. Um, because when you present a sort of like um hyper misogynistic like viewpoint, um, you can sort of you can and should look past that to sort of the root cause of it, right? Social isolation, things of that nature, and things like yeah, just having a bad time. Um, but they still are doing the misogyny, right? And I think it's fine to sort of to counter that where it is, and then sort of hope that sort of like triggers a self-reflection. Maybe it's not the ideal way to do it, but like in a lot of cases with incel culture, like deep incel culture, you have to basically do the deprogramming, which is like extraordinarily difficult and not something people can just do. Uh, but people can be more like, hey, don't be sexist to women.
Yeah, generally good advice. Um, I learned, yeah, and there is like that, yeah. The idea of like there is something validating their worldview of like saying, oh yeah, like these people are just not having what's it called, just not having sex, and I'm like, okay, yeah, and like that's how their frustration over that is what's causing it. And it's like being frustrated over not having sex is called being in your 20s. That's just what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, the person, yeah, the guy in the UK, the shooting that happened in the UK from the incel like a few weeks ago, admitted he hadn't tried to talk to a girl since he was 17.
Yeah. So I think,
Toxic. It's a
yeah.
toxic community that these people, this like emotion puts them into.
Yeah. I don't think that it does validate their worldview to sort of like counter their sexism when they talk about it. But I also do think that like when people talk about like the general cause of insults generally, only the weirdest people in the world are people who would be like, well maybe women should be having more sex. And it's more rather because the only people who say that shit is like people like Jordan Peterson. Who are like he's just extraordinarily weird. I think most people who like when they engage with and when they want to sort of like deconstruct incelism, they do look past the sex angle, and I think that's good.
The next question's got some stuff to do with like dysphoria and passing talk. Is that a thing you're cool with talking about right now?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So the next question we got here is, Mia, why do some trans people continue to experience dysphoria even after they get to the point where they pass? Last week you tweeted about feeling dysphoria. I only know you're not a tall cis woman because you told us.
Uh, so dysphoria isn't a sort of like external emotion that like, comes from something. It's extraordinarily like internal and introspective. Um, and I briefly mentioned this in my most recent video, and I talked more about it in my video about passing, where how um, passing has much more to do, or like dysphoria and passing are like not really connected to each other. Passing is external, and passing comes from not being visibly trans, right? But dysphoria comes from the differences between your own self-image and the way that you perceive yourself. Self-image, I mean more like in the sense of like how do you perceive the way that you would ideally look like? The Matrix, I guess, is like the best allegory that I can have here. Like how do you look in the Matrix compared to how you look in real life? The Matrix is so fucking trans.
Soon.
And
Soon.
soon, uh, so soon. But so like, and if those two images are very similar to each other, if those two images are, the more similar they are, the less dysphoria you feel. But the more different they are, the bigger that split, the more dysphoria you feel. That's basically what it is. It's a type of um, it's just a bit of a disconnect. But it doesn't really have anything to do with passing in that sense. So you can be fully passing and like stereotypically beautiful, but there might be some detail about yourself that doesn't look the way that you imagine it being. Um, like you don't see it the way that you think that you would like to see it. And that's a different thing also from like how you actually look. Like that's like a whole third thing. Like I'm only talking about how you see yourself in the mirror, for example, or in the selfies or whatever, versus how you think you should look.
Yeah, and I mean, like,
And then in real life, everyone probably just looks fine.
that's very understandable because, like, I think everybody can understand the vast chasm between how you actually look and how you think you look.
Exactly. Like, and that also has like an influence in it. So you can actually physically look the way that you think that you should look. Like, and if you want to be like pretty and passing, and if you do look pretty and passing in every single detail of the way you do, ideally you should not have dysphoria, but you may not see yourself the way you think that you should look. And therefore the disconnect exists anyway. Like I get dysphoric like constantly between days, but if I take like selfies between those, um, between like sessions or whatever of dysphoria, um, like throughout a day, I'm gonna look the same, but the way I will see myself will differ immensely, depending on you know, what facial features you notice, depending on like how what you see, um, yeah, and then also just simply because like you see your own face way more than you see anyone else's face. So you're way better at like spotting out details that most people never notice. And those details can also cause dysphoria. Hope that's a good answer.
Yeah, that was a real good answer. Um, okay. Next, we got up. Oh, okay. So this is a little bit of a dated question now because of the somebody pulled an Uno reverse card on them, but the OnlyFans thing. Um,
Uh-huh.
do sex workers need a platform that's owned by the people who contribute to it?
That would probably be best, honestly. The problem with having a sort of like monetary platform, the scale of OnlyFans is you sort of, unless you're already rich, you need to have like venture capital to do it. And venture capital doesn't do anything regarding sex work. So it would be really difficult to do it. You could do it, but it would be really difficult to do it. Someone should still do it, despite the fact that OnlyFans is like reversing on its decision, simply because OnlyFans is like the worst page for creators of all kinds, not just sex workers. Um, like Patreon takes a few percentage points, right? Like Patreon is like very easy and like very straightforward to use, but doesn't allow sex workers at all. So people went to OnlyFans. And OnlyFans can only get away with having such a big um, percentage take because they take like 20% or something insane like that. Um, and and just take it. And they get away with it because there's no other competition to like push their prices down. Uh, so you know, sex workers definitely should like make like Patreon, but for sex workers. I don't know if that's going to happen because it takes a lot of money to make a service like that, and have it like run reliably and have it like be safe and secure. Um, but yeah,
Good answer. Also, if you had any question about how good your previous answer was, someone in the chat just said egg breaking intensifies. So
God bless.
go with God. Um,
Mashallah.
yeah. The next one we got here is Noam Chomsky said in an interview that the Nuremberg trials are the least deficient trials in history. He says they were deficient because the victors defined what a war crime was. So carpet bombing cities with civilians by the Allies isn't considered a war crime. Do you think that one, he's right, and two, if the Allies had done so, would it help Nazis? Would it help the Nazis both sides World War II or neuter their arguments? So,
I didn't really catch the end there.
okay. The basically the question is like, is Noam Chomsky right by saying that the Nuremberg trials have some serious issues because of the fact that the winners of the war defined what a war crime was, so they could say a war crime is what the Axis did, but all the the strategic bombing and like fire bombing and all that kind of stuff, that's okay. That's not a war crime, but what the Nazis did is a war crime. And is that correct? Is that a correct like thing to point out? And then if that is the case, wouldn't Nazis should wouldn't Nazi wouldn't that help Nazis by letting them both sides World War II?
I think I'm coming up with an answer. Do you want to take it first?
I mean, my side is Noam Chomsky, like many times, is yeah, he's right. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
like the Allies did do war crimes differently, not to the same scale as the Axis, because they didn't do a Holocaust, but they definitely like did horrible things during the war that should be considered war crimes,
Yeah.
and it is definitely very hypocritical that nobody from the Allies went to had any sort of justice for what they did, but then the Axis powers did. And the second answer is yes, because that is a thing that Nazis do. Neo Nazis do both sides World War II because of this exact thing, and so they
Yeah.
did give ammunition to neo Nazis. So the answer is not could that happen. It is that it did happen and still does
Did
happen.
Despite, yeah, that's a pretty good answer. I think it's important for people to also remember that like the Nuremberg trials weren't actually like trials in that sense. Like, I mean, they are, but like the vast majority of them were mostly an excuse to sort of like get away with, um, it's just basically just paperwork to have like a reasonable excuse to either kill or lock up Nazis for the rest of their life. It was less a sort of like creation of justice and more as a sort of like paperwork thing to sort of like these people are the worst people in the fucking world, and we need to get rid of them, but not all of them, just some of them, so that we can keep the rest being like paper workers in like West Germany. But we need to get rid of some of them like very publicly and very like definitively, and a trial is a good way to do that. That's more of what they were than anything else, really. Those trials are wild also because it's really some of the laws that they used to do it is like actually pretty interesting because like the Nazis didn't like they had to convict Nazis of committing crimes that weren't legally crimes. Because what law system are you going to use? Are you going to use the law system of Nazi Germany? Because a lot of Nazis didn't break the law, or like international law doesn't cover some areas of the things that like did happened under the Holocaust. So what they had to do to sort of make it like legally work, because they did. I'm not saying that they didn't. They did it well. But in order to sort of like stretch the definition of what is considered like an actual trial, like they tried high-ranking Nazis for piracy, because piracy can be defined as like a crime against humanity in the sense of like you're taking people in sort of extraterritorial areas and
You wouldn't download a war.
yeah, kind sort of, and because of that, like seafaring piracy laws that hasn't been enforced for ages, were some of the only like international treaties that most people had signed up to that everyone is gonna agree is like bad. So like
Took them to sea
technically
court.
somehow, technically some people were convicted of piracy, and that's why they got hung or like executed.
That's intense.
For Nazis.
Because yeah,
Right?
yeah. Someone pointed out in the chat, like if it was an actual trial, one of the biggest war crimes of World War II was the only time in history we dropped nuclear weapons on civilian targets or on human beings in general. But that's not a war crime for reasons. Rebecca Brewer just asked, pardon my ignorance. How do I do a super chat? If you look at the chat window at the bottom, back down where you type, there's a button with a dollar sign. I think you do that. You click on that, and it'll help you out from there. There's like stickers and super chat or whatever. Okay.
Oh shit, there's like stickers. Holy shit.
But that was a good answer. Yeah, it was a bit of a show trial.
Yeah. For good reason. Like, they're fucking Nazis.
Yeah. They needed to get all of the Nazis that did not know how to make rockets to be punished for their crimes.
Yeah. It's like getting, what do you call it? Al Capone on tax evasion.
Yeah. Did you ever watch the show For All Mankind?
I watched some of it. I haven't finished it.
Okay.
I sort of lost track halfway through, but I liked it a lot, and I know what happened, so you can spoil.
Yeah. The episode where they corner Werner von Braun in court with all the shit he did, I'm like, God damn, this is like one of the best things that I wish had happened in real life.
Yeah. I saw you I saw you tweet about For All Mankind, like when you watched it, like live tweeting, and tweeting about like, oh man, they really whitewashed Werner von Braun and like sort of like let him get away with his bullshit. And I just sat there and just like, oh, you wait, it's coming. It's a good show.
Yeah, it is a good show.
It's a good show.
There's not a lot of very good feel-good science fiction these days, and that was one of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great starter too, starting with a moon landing and then just a Russian.
Yeah, and it's like an alternate history that doesn't like try to. It's like it's alternate history done well, where it's doing an alternate history, but it's not trying to. Like, it's not overtly interested in just butterfly affecting the whole world scenario. It's more like using the alternate history to tell essentially just a different story of a thing that really happened, which was like, the space race.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that's good. And I like that it keeps its like excessive what's it called? Like history world building to like a really manageable level that is easy to understand and isn't just like, because there's a lot of alternate history, I would say almost the entire genre, where you can tell that the author just got way too carried away with the setting and forgot that you have to tell a story in stories, and they just got lost.
Yeah.
All right. The next thing we got here is in 2017, not long after Trump was elected, Mike Duncan, who I think is like the History of Rome guy, wrote a book comparing the late Roman Republic to present-day United States. Oh boy, that's a comparison no one's ever made before. How do you feel about popular history books that do that kind of thing? I think you've told me before real academic historians consider it bad form to treat events in the past like they're direct parallels to stuff going on now.
Especially from the Roman Republic.
Yeah.
You can do historical parallels, and you can definitely do it, like as allegory, right? But the further back you go, the more disconnected it becomes, and the more you have to work with like bridging that connection. And like comparing shit with the 1980s is like bad form. Comparing things with the Roman Republic is wild sound. Like you can't do that.
I will
the
say
the entire period of the fall of the Western Roman Empire, the entire history of it, called the decline of the Western Roman Empire, it is longer than the entire existence of the United States of America.
Yep. I will say, this is like a kind of thing that interesting to point out on this exact point, though, is that when the United States was formed, the actual people who formed the United States made an explicit connection themselves, and a lot of the stuff that they tried to do with the like all of the checks and balances and stuff in the American Constitution was intentionally like, all right, how do we do the Roman Republic again, but this time no empire? Because they saw because the idea was like the Roman Empire was like the beginning of monarchy, and monarchy was essentially like what led to the tyranny and the situation they were breaking away from now. So it was sort of like and because the American Revolution was fundamentally a conservative revolution, they wanted to return to a previous state of affairs that was like the Roman Republic. That was their whole idea. And so they tried very hard to be like, how do you do that? And that's why the president was like a super weak position, and the first United States was like extremely decentralized and all that kind of stuff until they decided to say fuck that and made the Constitution instead. And obviously turned out great since.
It's been flawless ever since, yeah.
So in many ways, it's a comparison they've invited, but it's not really one that is applicable now.
Yeah. That's a good point.
All right. This is a question about diseases in 3 subsections, so you can answer as many as you wish. Okay. 1. Is it possible, in your opinion, to completely eradicate all diseases, whether environmental, autoimmune, physical, or mental, the 4th category, neurodivergence, obviously off the list, to avoid eugenics? And what implications would that have for your health?
Well, you've done an interesting thing there. You've made a distinguishing line between mental health and neurodivergence. And like disease generally, that's sort of the first hinder. That's like the first block. Like define disease, because you can't. No one can. That's like a big problem actually in medical ethics.
That you can't define disease? Or
Not really, no. Like how can I draw a distinguishing line between sort of my um like my I have depression, not as much as I used to have, but let's say that I have light depression. I have a bit more than that, but let's say I have light depression that doesn't need to be treated or anything. But how do you make a distinguishing line between that and like my personality,
oh,
like
yeah,
who I am as a person? Because if we're starting to talk about like, okay, well, it would leave your personality intact, then we can sort of bring up like a whole list of various like neurological things that could be defined as like disorders or like bad things, or depending on who you ask, could be considered just like your personality.
Yep. Yeah, that is definitely like a thing that's at the center of
Yeah.
mental health. I thought for a second you said disease is a thing we can't define, and I was like, okay,
Well,
back up.
even then, it's sort of like because there are some types of like bodily things that happen, right? Like how do you define cancer? Because cancer is just like cells that multiply too weird. But sometimes cells have to multiply a little bit weird, and that's okay. Um, so the question is like, okay, well, do you only do it when it's like harmful to people? You can do that. Um, but like, how do we also define like what is harmful for people? Like, there's a lot of sort of definitional lines that have to be crossed. But also more practically, just because people exist, uh, human beings operate on a basis of like we are ecosystems, right? We have bacteria inside of us and on top of us that we need, and as long as those exist, some of them are going to go wrong occasionally. Them get sick.
But on that point, though, I do think that there is going to be at least some point where we're going to cross a threshold in regenerative medicine where a lot of things that we would collectively call disease would be a thing that would be a thing of the past.
Yeah.
Like, there's going to be a point where, where you can just cut out and replace pretty much any part of the human body, and at that point, like, a lot of diseases just do not have any, like, they would not be a thing anymore.
Yeah.
And in many ways, I think that's going to be like something that's more common in the future. The only thing that would be an issue in that case is saving the information of your brain, which is a way bigger problem.
Yeah, that's gonna be a tough one. I'm really looking forward to this like biological 3D printing shit that they're doing.
Oh yeah,
That's gonna change some shit, I think. That's gonna be big.
yeah. That's so whack. Like growing
I think
organs in like a 3D printer. It's so cool.
yeah. That's like that has your DNA, so it doesn't like reject, so you don't need to have like immune suppressing drugs for the rest of your life. That shit, when that shit becomes like viable, that's gonna change the medical industry.
Yeah,
I fully believe that.
and like yeah, you'd get surgeries where like instead of Like if you like, if you have hand cancer or something like that, they can just cut off your hand and grow you a new one.
It's making it, yeah.
Just replace your parts. That reminds me, I tried my 3D printer for the first time
Oh shit.
over the weekend. It was a disaster. Oh man, it was so panicky and everything because I accidentally spilled some resin, and resin creates like noxious fumes and stuff like that. And I had a mask and I had gloves and everything like that, but that was fine. But I was like trying to clean it up, and I didn't unwrap the paper towels to clean them up, and like my hands were gloved, and like they were like I was like they're covered. They were already covered in the goop. And so it was just like all, and like I ended up like contaminating everything and having to like clean everything with alcohol afterwards. And then there's the other fun thing, which is then like, in a haste to get rid of everything, I just threw it all in the garbage. And then it's like, you can't do that because it's hazardous waste and you have to expose it to you. Everything that you use to clean it up has to be exposed to UV radiation so that it cures, so that you can put it in the trash. So I had to then like pick through the garbage to find everything with resin on it to put it in a clear garbage bag so that I could expose it to sunlight for a day. And it's just like, it was a whole thing.
Oh, no.
So that's my current 3D printer situation. I've gotten some.
I hear that's common the first time you use it.
I've gotten I've gotten some more alcohol, a lot more alcohol, and I've almost cleaned everything. I need to put some stuff in my washing curing station to fix it. But once that's done, which I can do anytime, just whenever I just don't have, I haven't had the time to try and do stuff because I'm so busy. But maybe this weekend I'll try it again. And the print that failed, that fucked up everything, was an Eiffel Tower. So I blame the French again.
As you should. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty. Well, I guess it's. I don't know what's complicated in the world of 3D printers. Maybe that's like not that's complicated because I was like, it's a lot of like interlaced stuff. But I guess 3D printers don't care.
Well, yeah, these resin 3D printers don't care because the way that like most people when they think of 3D printers are thinking of like the nozzle that goes around with like liquid plastic, but this one is sort of like imagine like a platform, like a thing that dips into a vat of UV sensitive resin. So it cures with UV light. So it dips down and gets like about like 0.1 millimeters above a clear plastic screen. And then underneath the plastic screen is a UV LED, like a UV screen that flashes a UV light in the shape of whatever the layer is. And then it lifts it up and then does the next layer and it does the next layer and like that. And it's using resin, so it's a lot more volatile and like there's a lot more safety stuff involved, but it makes prints that are very, very intricate and people have used them to make like miniatures and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm looking up right now. There's a lot of like Warhammer like miniatures that are like extremely detailed. Holy shit.
Yeah, so I'm trying to get that up and running. So in Eiffel Tower, the details are not the thing. What happened is that 2 of the feet of the Eiffel Tower didn't stick to the plate.
Oh, no.
And if they don't stick to the plate, you can imagine that the UV light showing over and over again would just create like this clump of resin in the thing, which if you don't deal with soon enough can actually like damage the plastic and stuff, and it's like a whole thing. So, yeah. It's very fun. It's very. I'll give it another go. But soon I'm going to be making minis for D&D all the time. My ultimate goal, because I'm a giant dork. Okay, the second question we got on this like disease thing is, from an animal rights perspective, or nature rights if you don't consider bacteria or viruses equal to animals, would eradicating a disease be considered specieside? And should we care if a microorganism is destroyed both for the ecosystem and in moral terms? I have thought about this.
Fuck that virus.
Yeah, and also to a lot of biologists, like, viruses are kind of only quasi-alive.
Yeah.
And there are some that, like, there are some species that if they were to go extinct would, like, drastically improve people's lives and would have minimal effect on the environment. Like, they've kind of talked about how mosquitoes going extinct would actually not really fuck up the environment much.
Yeah, because like bugs don't like other bugs and like small animals don't really eat them either. So they just like annoy shit. They're not even food for most animals.
Hmm.
They're just bad. They're just bad animals. I was also about to mention the fucking mosquitoes. Fuck mosquitoes.
Yep. Mosquitoes have killed more humans than any other animal on Earth.
That's true. That's fucked up actually, isn't it?
Yep. Okay. Next, we got if we could genetically modify viruses and bacteria to eradicate their harm to us, would that be a valid route or too invasive towards them in terms of changing who they are in the ecosystem and interact with? You can extend this to GMO for flora and fauna and ecological and health purposes for humans, or even genetic interventions on humans to prevent disease, both autoimmune and mental. So the first thing on this is people who do genetic modification, like genetic engineering, there's a lot of concern about getting altered DNA into the ecosystem and how that will interact with the environment. This is a thing that this is a thing that we're now like very cautiously trying to do, but right now we try to keep it as limited as possible. Like that idea of genetically modifying mosquitoes so that all of the larvae that they produce are infertile.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this is can we genetically modify like mosquitoes so that they don't bite humans, and is that a way to fix this problem rather than making them go extinct?
I don't think you could, unless you like equipped every mosquito with like a DNA sensor and like had it check DNA before it sucked blood. I don't think it could do that. Because like humans and other animals are very similar to each other in the sense of like we have skin and blood, and that's all really a mosquito cares about.
Yeah. Yeah.
I heard from biologists that male mosquitoes are super good pollinators. Some species of mosquitoes are good. Some other species of mosquitoes are literally useless. There are some species of mosquito in I think like Kenya. I'm not sure, but like that region of Africa that just suck. They're just bad. Provide nothing, as far as people can tell.
Honestly, I vibe with that. Same. I know what it's like for the world to think that we're that that you're a useless sucker.
Listen, we're YouTubers. We it comes with the job.
Yeah. Somebody posted in there's a meme going around right now that I am upset about because I feel like it is targeting me way too explicitly, which is
Talking to you personally.
well, yeah, because it's that that like that Spider-Man meme that's going around where it's like Kirsten Dunst like turning around and yelling at somebody while Peter Parker looks like kind of like sad and like
I don't know that.
okay. I'm going to find it for you after the stream, but it's like she's like yelling at somebody on Peter Parker's behalf, and it's like he's not unemployed. He's a Twitch streamer, and I'm like, oh man. Hey Rebecca, thank you for the $10 super chat. I figure it out. Woot woot hoo hoo. I'm glad I stumbled onto the live stream you had a couple weeks ago. Well, I'm glad that you showed up, Rebecca. Much appreciated. Thank you for helping keep the house from the bank taking it. Thank you. I was like, what happens if I don't pay my mortgage? I think the bank takes my house. Is that how it works?
I don't know.
I shouldn't have said that because I have found out that socialists aren't allowed to have houses.
Well, you're no. You're renting it from the bank.
Yeah, there you go. My landlord is the bank.
How it works.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, let's see if
you because I'm moving to an apartment that I'm gonna rent, so I'm gonna be safe for another like 3 years.
Nice. Okay, I'm trying to find a really quick question, but all the rest of the questions are really long. So we've got about a minute. Nope, we've got less than a minute. Okay, how about this? I will look for somebody to raid, and you will tell all of these nice people where to consume your multitudes of content.
That sounds great. My name is Mia Mulder. You can find my content on miamulder.com. I'm currently very slowly building an actual website that I'm going to publish soon-ish. I'm currently moving, so everything's like a bit of a mess. Um, you can find, but right now the website takes you to my YouTube channel, which is my main content. You can also find my podcast that I do along with a friend called Leech Fest, which is a medical history podcast, and that's good. You can find that wherever you listen to podcasts. Uh, Most people use Spotify, but we're also on iTunes and Apple Podcasts and Amazon. I think I don't really know. We didn't put us there, but we ended up there because that's how podcasts work. And you can find my tweets on twitter.com/potatopolitics, and you can find my Twitch streams on twitch.tv/MeMulder. Haven't streamed in like a month again because I'm moving and it's hard to find like a time to sit down and play a video game for 4 hours and undrafted. But after I move, after I set up my desk and my workspace in a thing that I'm calling the gamer hole, then I can stream several times a week. So you can go
Nice.
there and follow.
And you guys know me. I'll be around. I'll see you guys next time. I'll have to take this up with you after the stream, but I think I might want to do this next week too because of a holiday this weekend. So we'll talk about that.
Oh, that's good timing because I was about to say the same.
Okay, then we're good. Okay, so I'll see you guys next time on Tuesday, and we'll do another one of these next Thursday. All right, everybody.
That was great. All right.
Be awesome. We're going to go raid MX Emily. And yeah, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and